Hey guys, I'm getting our trailer ready for a camp out. The kids like to just have sleepovers in the camper, and so getting that ready while they're at VBS. It's their last day. They've spent 2 to almost 3 hours away from me every single day this week, which has been interesting. Outside of going to my mom's, I don't think they've ever spent that much time away from me. And considering we're in a new place, I don't know a whole lot of people. It's been hard on me, but we made it through. We're on our last day. So I just walked into the garden. Last night we did our first black light. Sorry, there's a really pretty bird. We did our first black light walk of the garden because earlier this week we pulled 4 hornworms that were bigger than my finger. They were huge, off of our plants, and so we're just keeping an eye on it. Since we put everything in so late, I don't want a chance losing my entire plants, right? So this one was the one that has suffered the most, but you can see, like, it ate the main part. Luckily, I did trim a couple suckers off, but this one has a pretty established sucker. It's trying to put another one here and another one here. Tomatoes are super, super resilient, but you can see that several areas had been topped, so we're just kind of babying it. This is it's called a black strawberry. It's a cherry-sized tomato. You can see this one's almost ripe. But I found that the hornworms love that variety. They were not on any of my other plants. I also spent today and harvested all the flowers off the basil. Made another batch of basil tea. If you've not done that, do it. It's being sold as life-changing. It is delicious. Jonah loves it, and I love it, and so we're really enjoying that. So just kind of a quick overview of the garden. This one, of course, was the first plot. It also has more mounded dirt, so it is doing the best, but this weed cloth sucks and needs to have something over the top, and so I just haven't done that yet. So we've got a lot of weeds underneath there, but I mean, these poles, I think these were the 6-foot poles, so we'll say that's a 5 foot out of the ground, and this plant is almost to the top. I do like doing something along this style. Over there I did just a 4-post versus the A-frame, so you can kind of see over here. Let's see. Let's flip it so I can actually see what I'm doing. This one keeps coming apart on both ends, and I'm not in love with it. So what I want to do is, I have extra posts. I'm going to turn it into a 4-post square top, like that one over there, because that one seems to be the most stable. The A-frame, I was trying to build off of the triangles. I think if I would have maybe got them all to a single point, it would be a stronger situation. So more of like a teepee style. The A-frame just isn't really working for me. It's too hard to get them at the same level. But we do have a lot of changes. So tomatoes are doing great. I'm getting fruit. I have a bell pepper down there. It's tiny, but most of my bell peppers, if you haven't been following along, those were from seeds that I saved from store-bought peppers, so I didn't know what I was going to get. And they're doing phenomenal. The tomatillo over here, all of my tomatillos are going crazy. I think next year I'm going to reassess my situation here and let the tomatillos kind of just go along the ground, and I'll probably do them in the center of every other plot in here, and then alternate with the ground cherries, because the ground cherries are also going crazy, and so if I have them in the center, they can branch out. This one is the one that you can see the best. I went through earlier this week and reseeded some things that had died back, or like in the centers I hadn't done any of the squash. I'm probably going to regret planting squash this late because squash beetles, or I think squash bugs, I don't know what they are, vine borers, really are prominent here, and everybody I've talked to so far has said that they're decimating their crops at this point. So I planted some summer squash because they're an earlier variety than winter squash. I still have July, August, September. I have 3 months left in my growing season, so I have some time. So if I can get these plants established now, they should be doing okay. I honestly just grabbed seeds and put them in there. I think there was a couple mini pumpkins, summer squash. I did some sunflowers. I think that one actually might be a sunflower, I'm not sure. Just to get some of the space filled. We still do have one whole empty bed, and all of these poor plants may not survive to make it to the ground, but I still have a bunch of peppers. This whole tray is peppers. It already looks like a couple of them died. I want to say all those are Roma tomatoes, and this is mostly basil with the white ones are peppers. We have gotten so much rain the last couple days. I've not had to water anything. So the other thing I did, these rows, they're starting to look better. Some of them are just dying because they've lost all their leaves. Sweet potatoes, sorry, squirrel. But the other thing I did was I had a little pot that was like a windowsill pot that you sow basil into. I went ahead and had overplanted it, and so I've all these new little seedlings in front of the tomatoes are basil. I did it on both rows in between each of the tomato plants. This little pepper, it's got a pepper on there, so some of them survived, and then there's some that didn't, and that's just the nature of this season for me. But there are, like this one is doing fabulous, and I'll probably get tomatoes off of it. That one isn't doing as hot, but it's got a tomato that's ripening. I think this one right here that looks dead, I picked the fruit that was on that because it had turned red. It's sitting in my windowsill to use. But yeah, those are the rows. Oh, and oregano. Miss Judy gave that, or I bought that from Miss Judy when we were over at Yorkville the other day. So I'm excited. I've never grown any of the herbs, and so I'm excited for any of them to do anything. So these, when they are ripe, they're tomatillo. They'll be a purple variety. I found, I don't know, there was less than $1 for a pack of seeds, and there were purple tomatillos at Walmart. So can't really complain. The ground cherries are full of fruit. Another basil. I think there's 5 varieties of basil in my garden, and I'm just really enjoying. I just go through and cut off anything that looks like it's about ready to flower, pick the big leaves to dehydrate, which I'm doing my first batch today, once I can clean up my dehydrator, and then use the flowers for tea. I can probably get a quart of tea every day if I wanted to. I don't, but this tomatillo, they're getting so big, and the pollinators love them. This is another one that I kind of had to, that got sacrificed to the hornworm, but I have, there's a sucker right here actually that can go in. So I'm just trimming the suckers. Pulling it off with your fingers is probably not the best idea, but I take, let's see if I can do this on camera. Well, not really. Okay. Anyways, I just take the lower branches of leaves off. So just kind of like that. This is where it's going to keep growing up. These are the leaf branches. suckers can get suckers and they'll grow right in that crook. And I have this little bin of water. It's actually rainwater. It's the kids' toys, and it was full of rainwater because it got left out here. And so I just have all of my suckers sitting in there. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. There we go. To get them to root. If you put suckers in water, they'll start to root. Once they have the root hairs fully formed, you can then put them into soil. So what I'm going to do is, once I get some of these suckers rooted, I will probably replace them with any dead ones that are in the rows. I'm hoping that this weekend we can get another camel panel, but we have a full weekend of fun stuff, so I don't know if that'll happen this weekend, but I'm hoping to get another camel panel to go across there. I'm also on the lookout for seed potatoes. I need more potatoes. If you've not grown your own potatoes, that is life-changing. The potatoes are they're just better. They're so much better. Here's my other really exciting little experiment right here. These were mimosa trees I found starting in my road that goes back to the backside of the barn. And so I just dug them up and put them in a pot with soil, just ground soil from here, because they obviously love the soil. They pop up everywhere here. I would assume they're considered a weed here. They're a gorgeous tree. If you don't know what a mimosa tree is, Google it. They're beautiful. They have a nice, pretty pink flower that is edible. People make jam or jelly, I guess, out of like the tea that you would get from the flowers. So that is where that's at. I'm wanting to start a tray of sunflowers, a tray of brassicas, and probably do some other things this week to get started. What my thought is for the rows, because the plastic is 6 foot wide, so let's say I have 5.5 feet wide of growing space. So there's a lot of space over here, even with the basil. Already some of that basil looks like it's got burned up, but it is what it is. I'd rather try to grow something than not try and not get anything. So what I'm wanting to do along here is kind of just inner plant a bunch of things. So I want to do brassicas. So as basil and tomatoes and peppers don't like the cold, but if I get those brassicas and fall crops in, as these things die back from the excessive heat, I think we're past our super hot, but I'm used to the hot being in August, so I'm just kind of playing everything by ear here. But I want to get brassicas. I want to do some more squash down on the end, because I've got such a long growing season. I can probably get some more summer squash in. I've got to figure out a way to preserve it. So if you know a way of canning summer squash that is delicious, because I don't want to can a bunch of stuff I'm not going to eat, let me know. I do love me some good winter squash, and so I will probably doing some winter squash. It's just a really good staple all winter long for us. I want to do a fall planting of onions, but I will not do them in the grow bag again. I feel like it's a waste of a grow bag. I like the potatoes in the grow bag, but I didn't like the onions, and I'm not thinking I love the sweet potatoes. I only had 2 sweet potato, it wasn't the slips, it was like the actual piece of sweet potato that you then plant and whatever else. I'm sure if I would have made slips out of it, I could have gotten a lot further. I think with sweet potatoes, what I'm going to do next year is plant them at the bottom of the tomatoes and stuff, as a ground cover, because this this weed block works really good. It doesn't need something on top of it, but it's still nice that you don't have the sun baking on the hot plastic to have something growing over the top. So I figured sweet potatoes that do fabulous here are a perfect crop to use as a cover, but also get something edible out of it. Those I'd have to be a little bit more careful, because of course you don't want sweet potatoes growing up into the roots of the rest of your stuff. But if I can do it like on the ends here and let them vine back that way. I'm still wanting to do a cattle panel trellis over these walkways. I left, it's probably 5 feet from the row into the cattle panel. So I want to kind of do something pretty. If nothing else, just to be pretty. I have not got any of my flowers in. I do have chamomile, but I don't consider that a flower. I use the flowers for tea, so it's still something that I'm using for consumption. We have this Carolina horse nettle everywhere. So if you know of a way, short of mowing for 2 years, that's what I found is what's gonna do the best for getting rid of that. Let me know if you have some tips on that one. It is a nightshade closely related to tomatoes, so of course any pesticides that would, or herbicides that would kill it, I'm not using in my garden because I have a lot of tomatoes. And I don't want to I really don't use anything like that anyway, so we'll probably just go the mowing route for the foreseeable future. Our plan is, sorry, trying to get this trellis fixed. Our plan is actually to use this space for 6 years. So this is our first growing season. We'll have first summer growing in it. We'll plant in it for 5 more summers. So not counting this year, 5 summers. And then we're going to let it rest. And then our plan is, because it's a building site, we figured that out in the process of turning it into a garden. It's a building site. We want to put our house in this spot. So let's kind of go this way. You can kind of see the garden. So it would be a little bit smaller than the garden, but it would, with the hill, it would be easy to put a basement in. That's one thing that we really want in our next house, is a basement. We both miss having a basement in the hotter environment. It's nice having a space that you don't have to cool. Okay, this is another really cool, I don't know if it's so cool, but it's interesting. If you see the ground moving, it's ants. Now I had this happen over on the other side of my garden. You can kind of see on the lawnmower. And they're carrying larvae. So it's like they're moving their nest, but I don't know why. Maybe they had it out in the field and John mowed yesterday. And so that's what's going on. But the other, I don't know, it's probably been 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had them going from somewhere over here all the way down that row. I guess it was probably about 3 weeks ago, because it was when I was trying to put in these rows, and it was very interesting trying to do that while not trying to disturb the movement of the ants. And I have no clue. So they're coming, so far they're like to there. So I don't know what's going on there, but the ants here are interesting. An obscene amount of ants. And I'm trying to discern between fire ants, because Jonah has been bitten and is terrified of fire ants. And then we have these ants that are red in color, but I think it's because of the clay is so red here. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But yeah, that's another fun thing going on. And then I am trying to, I know it's a weed here. Everybody probably thinks I'm crazy for doing this, but back home, my mom tried to grow passion flower in our Portland house for years, and all she could ever get, I think we got blooms a few years, but we just had a really hard time growing them. But I already have, I don't know if you can see it, there's a passion fruit on this plant, and I've done nothing. This is a weed. So I'm gonna let it do its thing. You can do jams and stuff with them. Let's see, there you go. And the flowers, this one's a spent flower with a little lightning bug on there. But then that will turn into the fruit. And there was one, oh, right here. That is the start of the fruit. So, I will be trellising that along the fence line, just to bring in pollinators. Any flower that will bring in pollinators is a happy flower, and I think it's gorgeous. So that's my plan there. We need to take the weed eater and go along this fence line anyways, because I figure if I have something trellised along there, then the grass won't get so high. But part of why that area got so overgrown is one of the foundation sets. We dug 2 out. We're in the process of digging 3 when we decided that we needed to figure out how many of these suckers there are. There's 24, I think is what we counted. There is 3 across the entire yard. So, right where the crosses are. So the main 3 rows every 6 feet. So there's a lot of them. And it literally takes all of everything we have to move those. So that was not going to happen. I was not moving 24 of those suckers. But anyways, back to, we want to turn this into our actual house, because we are not in love with our house. We did not buy this property for the house. I will be very clear on that. We did not buy this property for the house. We bought this property for the property. It had a barn with a concrete slab in the back that is perfect for any sort of outdoor thing. And then the property is just beautiful. This is the steepest hill on the property, and it's not steep. We can easily mow it, and compared to our old property, it's amazing. This is flat compared to our old property. We still do have a problem with drainage here, and you can kind of tell. So all of the skirting has been damaged. We have to figure out the drainage around the deck. I love that deck. That deck is probably my favorite part of the house. And I like that the house is substantially smaller than our old house, but it's still just, it wasn't well built. It is the same age as our old house, but I think our old house was like the top end model, and this is like the bottom end model. And it's been moved, so the foundations are not as sturdy as I like. When the whole house shakes when you've got the dryer going, not overloaded dryer, but just the dryer going, it's pretty sad. So we're gonna work with that. Our big project probably this fall will be residing, figuring out the skirting. So if you have a good skirting situation that you really like for mobiles, I would love to hear that. and then figuring out the drainage around the, just drainage on our property in general, but specifically around the house. They had, I think, tried to put a French drain in front of the deck. When it rains here, it rains way too much for a French drain to handle that flow, and so just having it last minute in front of the deck wouldn't have worked. But then they just threw down these pieces of plywood, which the copperhead we found was right here. So that was why it was imperative that we get rid of the copperhead. I was not having a copperhead between my house and my chicken yard that we go into, 4 times a day with 2 small children that don't understand the concept of good and bad animals. So we had to get rid of the copperhead, but we're going to figure out the drainage. I want to build kind of there next between the house and the deck, I kind of want to build a parking area. So we have all of our recycling bins there. We keep our garbage can out front because we walk it out to the street and it just makes sense for it to be there. But we do recycling is not like back home and you have to take it to the dump here. So we keep cans there. So I want like a patio area that we don't have to mow all the time. And then Jonah's big wheels can go there. Bikes could be parked there, whatever. And then I also want to cover the top portion, like that last step before you go into the house. There are not gutters. There are not eaves. Well, John likes to correct me. There are eaves. There are 2-inch eaves on this house. So it's nice. It would be nice to have a place to get out of the rain before you go into the house, just so you're not, when it rains. And yesterday I was outside. Well, we took Jonah to his appointment, and from the covered door of the appointment to the car, I was literally dripping wet from the rain. They say we get a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest, and I would venture to guess there is way more rain here than there is there, and that is why in late July I have zero sign of summer being here. Nothing has browned, nothing is dying, nothing is too dry, because this is also the wet season. So it's pretty amazing. And then my chickies. So this one's a rooster, we're fairly certain of, because this one and that one are the same, and they're not. And he likes to be on top of everything. She could care less. So this is Oreo. He is our smallest rooster, and his counterpart is, I'm gonna mess it up, I can't remember. I think Pie, maybe? I don't know. My kids named them. I can't keep them straight. And then Handsome. I can keep the rooster straight because we call them all the time. This is Handsome. He's my bigger of the 2 roosters. 2 nights ago, Oreo was up in that tree because I had the coop pulled up underneath the tree so John could mow. And so Oreo was up in the tree, and I seen Handsome trying to get up in the tree. I assumed it was a rooster squabble. They go after each other pretty frequently, and it is what it is. They don't actually fight. They just assert their dominance between each other. And Oreo definitely stays with the smaller birds, and Handsome stays with the older birds. Look at her. She's so pretty. Her floofy head. So I'm hoping that keeps them not fighting. But anyways, so they both were up in the tree, and I could not get them both down by myself. So after picking up John and I came out, and John got Handsome out of the tree. And since I'd already locked up Oreo, he wasn't back up in the tree. Last night, I came out to close up the chicks after picking up the kids, and the coop was half empty. Half my birds were out. There were 5 birds, Oreo and 4 hens up in that tree. And then when we came after picking up John, Handsome was also up there. So, needless to say, the coop moved today, but it was a pretty funny saga of where's the birds at. So that was fun with having the scarecrow and all of the holographic things around the yard. These are just cheap dollar store pinwheels. I do also have the ones out there in the yard, are the yard ones that the dollar store carries. Now, in the future, I will always buy those ones. They hold up better, and I can actually put those ones in the ground. I can't put the white handled ones in the ground. So that's fun. So yeah, that's kind of the update on our property. I'm hoping to this fall be able to get some tree starts. I'd like to get dwarf variety apple. I'll probably do a peach because Lydia likes peach. Pear, maybe some nectarine, something or others. And I want to line the long fence lines. The camera doesn't do it justice, but this yard is 120 feet long. And so I want to do both sides with probably dwarf varieties. So my thought here is if I have the fruit trees in the chicken yard, the chickens will keep the pest problem down, as well as eat up any bad fruit that has fallen. Now that also means any good fruit that falls will be sacrificed to the chickens. So we'll see how that works. But I'm hoping to get some trees in here this fall. And maybe that will be not right, but that's my hope, is to get that in, so I can get this cleared out. What we're going to do is make an alley along on the forest side of this, so that we can run animals up that fence line and around, and there's already an alley there. We'll just have to mow down all the blackberries and brambles and viney thingamabobbers that grow along there. So that's our plan, to be able to have access to the barn. And we'll just cut into the forest probably 10 feet, so then anything that I plant in here will then obviously have enough sun, because all of this stuff that's grown over the fence won't be there once we get it cleared. I'm still trying to figure out, there's a beehive right there, and if you walk too close to it, they get aggressive. Their sting stings for a minute, but it's not like a wasp sting or anything. So if you have I think that they're sweat bees from what we've researched so far. The camera, of course, didn't catch that, but there are bees going in there. The chickens go over it. And I think they get stung when they go over it, because they act kind of crazy for a little bit. But it makes mowing and picking this area up hard, because I want to get all the wood picked up. I want to get all the bricks. You can see those are 2 stones. I think it was their way to fill holes, is put stones and logs. So you can see back there, right there's some stones. So I want to get it picked up, because I want this to be an alleyway. I might try to grow something on this hillside, I'm not sure, but like I said, eventually we're going to be cutting in and having a basement there. I think we'll have the garage up at the top level, like off the road, because there's a road on the back side that will clear probably another 5 feet into the forest, 5 or 10 feet into the forest, to widen it, because the road goes from the actual road, the driveway goes up and around, and goes around. There's a Y off to the back side of the barn, and then it continues back to a turkey feeder at the back of our property. And so we want to get into hunting. I've never actually personally hunted, and I think John's only done it a couple times, and I don't think either one of us have ever hunted turkey, but I want to try to hunt it before I try to raise turkeys, because if it's easy enough to hunt and get sustainable turkey through hunting, I'd much rather not have the cost of raising a bird and buying the bird and brooding the bird if I can get it that way. And along those lines, almost all of our birds that we got this year were multi-purpose birds. So my hope is eventually that we'll be able to incubate our own eggs and raise up our own flocks, so we can close that loop and be able to have a dual purpose flock that is high producer of eggs, but also we can get meat from. I'm not opposed to eating older chickens. Our rooster, I think, was 1.5 years when we harvested him. And he was delicious. And at no point did we ever give him grower feed. So, he was on the same diet as my layers. So I'm totally okay with the world goes crazy. We can close a loop there, and if I don't eat eggs for a while because we're incubating them, that's just the nature of the beast. So yeah, that's kind of my little update ramble. So thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.